everyone. My name is Vernisa.
Hey, y'all. This is Jen.
And this is our podcast,
Speak Up.
What's up, Jen?
Hey, girl.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad that we made it to episode 60.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so excited we finally made it here, to be honest.
Yes, time is just flying.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, me and Jen are best friends, and we create this podcast to use our voices to motivate people to overcome life's challenges through self-love and respect.
That's right. Self-love and respect are two core values we're going to hold near and dear to our hearts.
Yes, most definitely. What's the announcement that we got for everybody?
So, we wanted to remind y'all that we are live and unfiltered every single Thursday at 7 p.m. only on the Good News Radio. In order to download the app, you just go to our page, click on the link in the bio, and you will find how to do that. We are able to chat with us live in the show as well as call in.
Yes, so make sure y'all tap in. We would love to hear from y'all.
That's right.
So today our episode is called Is the Time Right?
Is what time right?
Is the time right? There's a time for everything, right?
That's right. Yeah, so today is a time right. We're asking that when it comes to emotions, right? When it comes to feelings, because we all have different types of experiences where we feel like we want to share those feelings and kind of maybe lash out or maybe just have that negative moment, right? Where it's like, not even negative moment, I would say intense moment where it's like, oh, I need to let this out and etc. But you really got to think about, is it the right time, right? Is it the time for you to be doing this? Is this the appropriate place for you to be doing this? And then are you around the appropriate type of people?
Yeah, and a part of self-love and inner peace is having that balance with those emotions because, let's be real, we were to really lash out every emotion we felt every second, we would be all over the place. But I think we're able to master that energy, take control, because real days are going to go by, things are going to happen within your day, but it's like, are you bleeding on others in between that, or are you just having a bad day and you're able to control that?
I like that, and that's very true because let's be real, right? Sometimes before a big event or after a big event, different things happen, different emotions come along the way. So we may feel like, oh, I need to let this out and etc. And even though sometimes you have no choice but to let it out, there are moments where it's like, let me just take myself to the restroom real quick and just kind of do my thing there. Let me cry out, let me scream. Kind of like how you had brought up that girl last time about screaming in her car, like that was her moment, right? But sometimes we just got to thug it out and be able to deal with those emotions later versus in this moment.
Yeah, like I feel like I probably had a day where I lashed out and I wasn't supposed to, or I bled on others, or I was around people who were bleeding on others and like taking out whatever aggression that was on me or whoever they were around. And honestly, it's not fair to the person. It's not even fair to you to even like expose that side and show that. And then there's ways to have that bad day, but you're not like letting it take over you. Like me and Jen, for example, like our Aquarius selves, we're the type of people when we going through it, we don't like to bleed on others. We like to lash out. Yeah, it's happened before. I'm not saying we've never have, but I want people like I go silent. Like if my day is bad or like I have a lot of things to process or I'm trying to like avoid taking it out on people, I'll just shut off and be quiet. That's my way of respecting the people around me, but then respecting myself enough to like, okay, you're gonna give yourself enough time to do that. But then I feel like people have mistaken that as like, oh, what's wrong with you? Or like thinking I have an attitude or a problem, and I'm like, no, I'd rather sit like this and be quiet versus cussing everybody out because I'm mad about something totally different.
That's true. I like how you brought up that you're dealing with your emotions, right? You're putting yourself to the side and you're like, I'm going to deal with this over here, because let's be real, it's not anyone else's obligation to make you feel better. At the end of the day, like, yes, you know, your friends are there, your family's there, if you have a good relationship with them, but it's nobody's obligation to make you feel better. Even though they can support you and stuff, it is up to you to deal with those emotions, right? Because at the end of the day, you're the one choosing to react to something. You're the one having that experience with those feelings. So when you are taking yourself out of the moment for a second and you're like, you know what, I just need this day, I need to be by myself, that's when you're really taking control of that and you're realizing like, I have to have me. You know, I can't expect somebody else to do the work for me. I can't expect somebody else to tell me it's going to be okay, you know, or you shouldn't be feeling this way. Even though we receive advice from people, we choose to either continue letting it bother us or we choose to be like, you know what, I'm going to deal with it and then I'll move on. But yeah, it's nobody else's job to be like there for you and be your emotional thermometer and controller and stuff.
Yeah, and if there is a situation where you like kind of do need to speak to somebody in that moment, like a close friend or call a family member, like there's a difference between venting to them and then just like completely taking it out on them, you know. And I think that there has to be a line drawn with that, because you can't say, oh, I'm letting it out, you know, I need them to help me, but you're the whole time like making them, you're trying to make them feel like crap because you feel like that, you know. And I think it's very important to do that. And I want to say this too, like you just said, it's not anyone's job to make us feel better. Our partner either shouldn't have to be our punching bag, you know. Like you said, a lot of relationships people think, well, that's my boo, we've been together, and like that's the main part where people take their emotions out on who they're with or whatever, and it's like that's not fair either to that person.
Yeah, I mean, I can say this too, right? Not proudly, but I can say I've been guilty of taking my emotions out on my partner. I wouldn't say necessarily treating them as a punching bag, but definitely letting them take the brunt of whatever I've dealt with that day. And that sucks because your partner should be your safe space, and they should be allowed to have that safe space with you. But when we're creating this type of environment, they'll kind of be on edge, right? Walking on eggshells around us. And that's not a good feeling either. So it's something to definitely be mindful of because, again, if the roles were reversed, right, would we want to be treated as that punching bag as well? So we really have to be mindful because sometimes our partners see the ugliest sides of us, right? Like our best friends see the ugliest sides of us. Our partner does too. But should they really have to when it comes to your own issues, right? When it comes to your own problems. Now, if y'all are having like an argument within the couple, that's different. I'm not going to tell you how to handle that part, but like if you're going through something in your job, in your business, in a certain goal or whichever, like don't take that out on your partner. It is not their fault that you're going through something like this. And even if it is, again, it's up to you if you're choosing to react to a certain situation in the first place.
Yeah, and that's true. And we want to emphasize too, don't let anyone treat you as a punching bag, you know, especially when it comes to emotions. I feel like sometimes the emotions are so micro that we don't even see it happening, but someone could still be taking it out on you. And it doesn't have to be they hit you or they called you out your name. It could be those minute things, those little passive aggressive slurs, like as a way of somebody like, or someone just trying to boss you around. I had to learn it the hard way, because the way I was growing up, I was always real like nurturing and like trying to seek validation, trying to be so nice and loving to people. Or like when I saw someone hurting, I always wanted to like make sure they're okay and things like that. And I didn't realize how much I was letting them like kind of like walk all over me or like take advantage of like my kindness because they were in like a messed up space or whatever. Like still trying to be nice and I'm all broken up, but still trying to help them, even though I'm not at my best, you know. But then when you, I feel like when you go through it enough, or you get there, you grow this backbone where you don't let people do that to you.
Yeah, and that's the realest thing. That's why we can't get surprised when people start to change up on us like that, right? And because sometimes it is the causing of our own doing to them, that they're seeing like, oh shoot, you know, maybe I shouldn't be as nice to this person, or I need to back off every now and then, or let me speak up for myself, right? I had to learn to do that too. I used to be a very timid kid, and I used to be the type of person who would want to please everybody around me. So I would just kind of take things, and I was always known as like the nice girl and whichever. And now I'm not saying I'm not nice, but like I don't let people mess with me either, you know, because I learned that if you don't learn to speak up for yourself, then you're always just going to have all these emotions attacking you from different types of people, and that's not fair, right? Whatever they're going through, that's their issue, but if they're trying to mess with you on it, don't be that punching bag. Do not let anybody walk all over you. That's not fair.
And being the person who treats somebody like a punching bag, sometimes that person doesn't even know they're doing it. Because let's be real, like we've all been in stressful situations where we're trying to meet a deadline, you know, or it's like a lot of pressure around us, and we kind of like lash out on the people close to us, but we're not even aware that we're hurting them, because it's like you're under pressure, you're in your own world blowing up. Because I can say I've been guilty of that, like not even paying attention to my surroundings because I'm so warped up in whatever I got going on that I didn't realize I've hurt people around me with some of the words I said, or like, you know, me like trying to boss people, because like, but it was like unintentional, if that makes sense. But to them, you know, I was, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I gotta take accountability because you're hurting them. But my thing is, if I don't know I'm doing it too, that's why it's important that we speak up about those things when somebody is doing that. And I feel like when you don't speak up on it, that's how you cause that tension. Because guess what? Let's say someone lashed out on you. They really weren't aware they were doing it, and you just stop talking to them. You start being weird with them. They're not going to know, and then how are they going to fix that? And they think it's okay. You know, they're never going to catch what they do. So I think that's why it's important to communicate whenever you feel like you are being treated like a punching bag.
That's true. I like that you brought that up, because sometimes, it is unintentional. Not everybody's out to get us, right? We've mentioned this before. So maybe that person doesn't know how to regulate their emotions. And again, it's not up to you to do it for them, but at least if you start making them aware of it, it's a better way of not only speaking up for yourself, but also kind of helping that person too, and realizing like, oh shoot, you know, I am doing this. And I also wanted to bring up too, for the people who are treating people like punching bags, whether you know it or not, there's also, or I'm sorry, if you're trying to speak up for yourself also, right? There's a difference between like being straight up about your feelings and then just being a bitch or being mean. I'm sorry. Like, I had to say it like that. I didn't even want to use that term, but honestly, like, I've met some people where they think they're being so blunt and, oh, I'm upfront about this, I don't keep my feelings in, I have no filter, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you're just a mean person. And that's not cool. Like, there's a difference between, speaking up for yourself, not letting people walk all over you, versus just actively pointing out somebody else's flaws for your own entertainment, or because you feel like crap, you want to make them feel like crap. That's not cool either.
Yeah, I feel like people use it as their like cover up. It's like, well, that's really what it is, and they try to make people feel like crap who aren't as like blunt, like try to make them seem weak, like, oh, you're weak because you don't say anything. It's like, no, I'm just not the person who's not finna pop off every 5 seconds about every little thing. Like, just because I'm more calm or it takes more for me to get mad doesn't mean I'm less of a person or that I'm a weak person. But you got people walking around that persona where there's something wrong. I met some tough people and I admire them. Like, oh, I love how straight up cutthroat. Like, so I got some Sagittarius friends, you know, they know for their mouth, they know for their fire, that you know, that quickness, you know. And they just say what's on their mind, and I think that's dope. There's nothing wrong with keeping them real, being upfront. But like you said, that when you are insulting people, trying to make people feel less than, that's when it's a problem. And it's like those some inner issues that need to be worked on. And I think too, those people that are tough, some people don't even know how to confront them or tell them about themselves. So then they go all their whole life like bullying people. We're gonna say that, bullying people, treating people like they punching bag and thinking that's okay. And it's like, well, everyone else is weak because I'm gonna keep it real. It's nothing wrong. You could keep it real and still be a genuine nice person. You do not have to be mean to keep it real. An asshole to keep it real. I'm sorry.
I agree 1,000%. I really like how you said that. We just need to watch out for how we're treating people. Like, I don't think people realize the power of words. I think we're so ready to just let loose what we feel in our thoughts all the time that we don't put into perspective how that might affect somebody. If you start attacking somebody's character versus actually trying to figure out the problem, then that's where you need to start watching yourself. Because like I said, we don't know what that does to somebody's psyche. We don't know how long that's going to be in their head, or maybe they've been having a bomb ass day and then you said something about their character like that, like a flaw that they're, or an insecurity or something, just to be a mean person. You just messed up their whole day, or that whole time being that they could have spent with you. Or, I'm sorry, people start looking at you funny too when you're just a mean person. Like, you're that person that's not going to get invited to any of the events. You're that person that nobody wants to be around for that reason. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be that person. So yeah, as real as we have to be about our emotions and what we're feeling and things like that, make sure that it's actually about you and those emotions and not you attacking that person. Don't ever come after somebody's character.
I agree with that. Like, there's a way to do it too, if like somebody really is in the wrong or whatever. And also too, let's talk about these whole like social media rants. You know, that's a big one. I think it's big with relationships. I feel like people go through these breakups or something, they're like the main ones on there. There's a time and place for that too, because I feel like people want to talk about how much people throw their business in their face, but I'm like, if you posted it everywhere, you mad, the enemy's watching too. Like, everybody know about you, but then you want to be mad when people flip it. You know, flip it and like throw stuff in your face. I feel like we really got to be cautious about what we're putting on there. I feel like we're in a time where the virtual world matters the most, and we really try to prove ourselves on social media, have this persona, look all tough. And I had the last one. Sometimes you even got to address certain things. Like I've seen drama on social media, people arguing in the comments, and I'm like, okay, like, everyone knows your business, knows what's going on. It's not gonna matter tomorrow. Right. What's the point of that? And then none of these people actually really hopped on the phone with each other or really went to go talk to each other in person. It's like, we're doing this whole virtual thing for what? Fighting over nonsense.
Oh, girl, that's true. Do I want to get into this? Yes, I do. So I have an ex who he just went on these rants every time something pissed him off, and it didn't even necessarily have to do with me all the time. Sometimes it was just an event that happened in his day and things like that. And I get it, like, he was a public figure in a lot of ways, so you know, that's part of his persona. But to me, it's like, and it's not just him, right, but like, he's an example, because that kind of showed me too how private I am about my own life, and how everybody deals with different things a certain way. But then, like you were saying, right, that we have to be mindful of, oh, well, how do they know my business, or why are they talking about me, why are they even getting involved in this thing? You put your business out there. So this person, he was just somebody who I think I don't know if he enjoyed it or he just wanted to put it out there for whatever reason, but it was something I didn't appreciate, because then all of a sudden different people were involved in the issues that we were having, and they were having all these opinions about me and stuff like that. Obviously, I know who I am and my character is what it is, and those people don't know me, but at the same time, I didn't appreciate somebody all of a sudden knowing something about me when they don't even know who I am. And this is a person that I will never probably see again in my life, but they know all this stuff that went down in that relationship. And it's like, for what, right? Like, now you're just attacking somebody's character at that point, because then that person, in order to make that friend feel better, they start saying, oh, well, she was probably this, she was probably that, whatever. And at the end of the day, what does that do for that person? That's just attacking the other person, but that's not actually solving the problem that led to that blow up in the first place. So I'm just saying that to say, like, if you've ever been involved in a rant online, or you've ever done the rant online and you've wondered why everybody's all in your business, and the actual feelings that you have of anger aren't getting resolved, it's for that very exact reason. Social media rants do not do anything for the actual issue, the root of the issue that is going on.
Yeah, because it's more about you protecting your image, protecting who you are, making yourself seem a certain way, and that's reality. Anyone go on the internet and say whatever, doesn't mean they're really living like that, because he could have lied about you, right? Said anything.
He sure lied about me.
But what, you know what I mean? And I think like I said, people are more concerned about that, you know. And honestly, social media is not the solution. Like, it's actually the last thing that you want to do, because in the day it takes time away from you doing the inner work, because your ego's tapping in right there, because you're feeding your ego, because you want to look and feel this certain way versus really doing the actual work. Because the real peace is when you ain't even gotta say nothing. Like, you just keep it pushing, or like move in peace and really do the inner work, and like allow yourself to heal from the situation. And also too, let's talk about showing your feelings in a professional setting. You know, we see this a lot at, you know, people at work and, you know, events and things like that, where it's like, it's easy for people to lose their composure and stuff. But I think that's where mastering your energy really comes in, because things are going to tick off, things are going to trigger you, but it's like how do you handle yourself when that does happen?
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing that you need to do. Master your energy anywhere, because in a professional setting, guess what? That is not the place for you to start putting those emotions out. Remember how earlier we talked about the appropriate time and place? A professional setting, whether it's an event, like a speaking event that you may have, it's at work, even at the gym, like, you're not allowed to show those emotions, right? And gym may not be so professional, but still, any type of place where you're around acquaintances, people you're making business transactions with, anything like that, you should not be showing those types of emotions. And I know sometimes things suck, or we get triggered right before the event happens or something. That's why take those minutes to yourself, or those seconds, if that's all you got. Take those seconds to yourself. Yeah. And get yourself together as best as you possibly can. I've gone into the bathroom by myself, cried in a stall for at least a minute, allowed myself to really cry in that moment, and then come back out, thug out the event, and then go back home and cry if I need to. Like, sometimes we just really have to hold our composure, and that's part of learning to regulate our emotions and realizing that the world doesn't revolve around us, because those events need to happen regardless if we're going to be our best or not. So you might as well try and be your best in that moment, and then thug it out to the very end, and then get your emotions in check afterwards.
That's so true. Like, at one of my previous jobs, we had a meditation coach come in, and she said sometimes you might have to go to the bathroom. You can just a little 2 minutes in, like a little just and, you know, get it out. And I'm a real, you know, being a little vulnerable on here and opening up. There's been times where, I want to say it's professional, but it's still me in public. But like, I've been out eating with friends, or like a homegirl, and I'm opening up, and I've caught myself crying in public places, talking. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable, opening up, but that's just a sign right there. Like, there's some balancing I need to work on, because it's nothing wrong with crying. Things happen. You never know what's going to make you cry, what's going to trigger you. But I'm learning to master that, to where I could keep my composure, at least to get into the bathroom to do that, you know, like you said, or in the right space. Because like, I feel like it shows you how big the problem was, or whatever I was battling, to where it had to hit me in public settings, or like happy, so everyone's partying, having a good time, and you look up, you see, you know what I mean? And I'm being open and honest about that, you know. So it's an everyday process. Be patient with yourself through it. But I feel like you know, there is a right time, or a place to be able to work through those emotions.
Absolutely, yeah, because we're never going to sit on here and be like, oh, I've never done this, I've never cried at work.
We've done it.
I'm sorry. Like, there was a tragedy that happened in my family, like about a month ago or so, and I was doing a lot, trying to fundraise, trying to get all these connections going, and then still having to focus on my job at the same time. But something triggered me, and then I got asked all these questions, you know, about that family member. And it just brought all this stuff. I couldn't make it to the bathroom. The good thing is I was by myself in my office, but it did suck, because I didn't want to cry. That wasn't something that I wanted to be remembered for, because I remember people passing by and they kind of just like stared, didn't know what to do. But then I also was just like, you know what, like I'm gonna thug it out. And you know, I let myself cry for like a minute or so, a little 2 tears, and then I just kept it pushing.
Yeah, you do what you had to do, and you strong for it. And I want to get into also the difference between of being private and just suffering in silence. So me and Jim mentioned earlier, like sometimes we we're quiet about our emotions, or like we'll hold it in, or like we like to, we just talk about alone time a lot, like spend that time alone. There's a difference between you are a private person, you process yourself, that's what helps you recharge, and then just suffering in silence. I've been in both situations. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, as private as a person that I can be, and like I am a person who needs that alone time to recharge, there has been times where I allowed myself to suffer in silence because for some reason I felt like I couldn't tell nobody what I was going through, or it's just there's different reasons. But I had to work on that because I'm like, that's not fair to you. Like, if it's something that I really cannot take on by myself, it's okay to reach out to a friend or family member to open up, or like to, get the right insight on certain things, or cry on somebody's shoulder, show that vulnerability to a person, but I know how it feels to feel alone and feel like you can't say anything about whatever is going on, but there is a difference between the two.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should all be allowed at least one person who we can be completely vulnerable with. I would say I'm very private to the outside world, but I feel like my mom, like y'all know the real sadness that I've experienced, or the real emotions that I've experienced to a certain point, or like my day-to-day life, that type of thing, just like how I know y'all's. And that's okay, right? It's about having that balance. Of course, everything that I tell you, I'm not going to put out there on social media and be like, oh, look, this happened to me and blah, 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 or I'm angry because blah, blah, blah. Like, no. But if we have that person who we can go to, we don't have to suffer in silence. We don't have to be pretending that we're good, we're thugging it out all the time. I feel like that's my phrase for this episode.
Hey, that makes sense.
Yeah, but we don't have to put on this brave face all the time. And then I want to say, too, suffering in silence can also mean literally by yourself, and you're not even facing those emotions, right? Because there comes a point where even if you vent to your friends, your family, you still got to deal with those emotions on your own time. But if you refuse to deal with them, you're just numbing them out, or you're pretending that they don't exist. Well, that's the same thing. But if you're just saying that, no, I'm good and it doesn't actually affect me, or that's all the cry that I needed, or that's all the anger that I needed to let out, you're actually suffering in silence, because then those emotions are still in there somewhere, and they're going to come out at the most unexpected time. And that's what we're trying to avoid here, where you get triggered because of something or somebody, and that's when the emotions come out and we have no control over them. But versus you actually going to somebody you confide in, but also doing the inner work by yourself. This is why we emphasize that, because only you know how much something really affected you. But if you're choosing not to face it, then what's that doing for yourself? You're just letting that build up inside of you.
Yeah, it goes with the whole self-sabotaging, and then the breakdowns in the public places that I went through, that I just talked about, or like cussing people out for no reason, because we have, in the day, that energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So what are you transmuting it to? Because if you ain't transmuted it to like some type of productivity or other things, or things that enhance your life, it's going to transmute into anger or sadness in those random settings, like we just said. And it's like, that's not fair to whoever you're hanging out with. Or it's sad too, because it's like you got sometimes too, I feel like when we don't work on the relationship with ourselves and loving ourselves, we feel like we don't deserve people checking on us. Some people are there trying to give us genuine love, and you okay? We push them away because we're like, oh no, I'm fine, or and it's like you. Sometimes I realize I've had a support system in certain situations, but I couldn't even. I'm so clouded in whatever's going on. I was pushing that love away. Me and Jer watching this movie last night, and in the movie, the girl had all these issues, like she was going through a lot, and she had like a loving partner, a really good best friend, and like she even had a therapist. And she wasn't opening up to none of them. Like, the therapist, she was just talking about her day-to-day life. Her boo was like, oh, you good? You need anything? Oh, I'm fine. Her best friend, same thing. And I was like, wow, it's crazy, because that's really a real scenario. I feel like, we have that. I feel like a lot of people go through that. Like, they have that, but they don't know how to open up or vent. And then we think too, we don't, like, I think too, when you're used to being the rock in your family, the one who is helping and healing everybody, it's hard for you to find help from others, because I've been guilty of that too. Like, I'm used to like pouring into people, but then I'm like, oh shoot, someone wants to pour into me? Oh, hold on, like, you don't know how to accept it, because it's like surreal to you. It's like odd, so that's another thing. Allow yourself to be helped as well.
That's a big one too, because I know some of y'all out there may be like, oh, well, I ain't got time to deal with myself and blah, blah, blah. if you go to the bathroom, if you take a shower, you have time. I'm just
right
gonna
before
say,
falling asleep.
Exactly. Like, you have moments to yourself, regardless how brief they are. And maybe you're like, you know what, but I'm so tired, I don't want to deal with them at that point. So what, you're just gonna be too tired for yourself your whole life? You're just not gonna be wanting to build your relationship with you? If you're so busy trying to build a relationship with other people, why wouldn't you start with you? That's gonna influence how you're gonna react and interact with everybody else around your life. And we wanted to emphasize too, it's okay to take your time with those feelings. You're not going to figure everything out right at once. You know, I'm not going to sit here in front of the mirror and be like, okay, I'm dealing with myself. This came because of this and these emotions. Oh, well, I got to the root of it and that's it. No, sometimes the root of it is that baby first step that you need to take to even expand on this whole bigger issue that's going on. But if we're not even taking those 5 minutes, those 2 minutes to do it, and we're just being impatient with ourselves, then we're never going to get to it because we think it's this whole big grand project. It's like the same thing with goals, right? We talk about having that big goal and then breaking them down to smaller ones. It's the same thing with dealing with those emotions, because those emotions are coming from something. They're not just coming from that one isolated event. Because let's be real, even something as minor as like you stubbed your toe and then you get all angry and all that stuff, that's not coming from just that one incident. Something happened. Yeah, so we need to really start taking time to ourselves and really have that patience with ourselves.
And it's okay to cry. Men, it's okay to cry. We said this in a previous episode, but sometimes you need that cry.
Yes.
There's times I'm like, I ain't finna cry. No, I'm too thug for this. I ain't finna cry. No, and I need to come out, and then I feel better after. But hey, that's you facing yourself. That's you nurturing your emotions. Like, let yourself refresh. You know, let your soul, recharge. And there's a difference between being okay and faking it. How a lot of us done faked it. I'm fine. That I'm fine line. I'm okay. And it's like, you really not, you hurting, and then it takes that one person to go, what's wrong, and you just start crying. And it's like, acknowledge it. I feel like when you're really okay, it will shine through. It'll come out, but when you're not okay, you're faking. Is when you still feel kind of weird on the inside, but you're trying to, and I get it, it goes with us trying to be strong, trying to like hold our composure and stuff, but sometimes it's okay to admit that you're not okay.
We're human, y'all. We go through so many things, and we're humans dealing with other humans who come with their own demons, their own insecurities, their own emotions, all of that compacted into one other body. So you're already busy trying to figure out your own, and then trying to figure out other people's. It's not easy, right? So we really need to try and find healthy coping mechanisms as well for our feelings, and really trying to figure out what's the best way for me to channel this anger, right? We talk about like transmuting your energy into different places, because it's not just anger. And I want to re-emphasize this because I know we've said this before, but we're not talking about emotions as negative, right? Because no emotion is negative. They're all valid. They're all supposed to be there at some point or another, and they're all helpful in different areas of our lives. But I would say the more intense emotions, the less accepted emotions, I guess is what I would say. Trying figuring those out, like how can I find healthier coping mechanisms? Like for us, I think a big thing that works is we isolate ourselves, even from each other sometimes. Like we just need our moments, because I realize that you have your whole life outside of me, outside of our friendship, everything. So of course, whatever you got to deal with, sometimes you got to deal with it first before coming to me about it. And same thing with me, right? We take a lot of alone time even from each other. So sometimes it's okay to do that, or sometimes the opposite, right? When you feel it, you got to let your people know and then deal with it afterwards, right? But whatever it is, making sure that you have a healthy way of letting it out. Write it out if you got to, right? Sometimes we got to write out these angry letters or something at somebody and then burn it or delete it or whatever. But if we're actually doing something to let these feelings out, then we're less likely to just burst out in a big event or in a family reunion or somewhere where it's not as appropriate to let it out.
Yeah, sometimes your coping mechanism might be just play that playlist. Like, I for sure got that playlist later with the lights off, playing that songs, really thinking and crying. We all have different ways. Sometimes it is that isolation we were saying, and respect people's boundaries when they don't want to talk. Sometimes people will tell you like, okay, I need my space. And that's okay. And like so we said that with each other. Sometimes we're like, okay, best friend, I'm going through this. Okay, cool. Whatever. I'm here if you need me. Bam. And then we help each other out. And sometimes too, the solution is within yourself. Shoot, most of the time it is within yourself. And don't be afraid to get down and dirty with yourself to really figure out what it is. But if we're scared to get to know ourselves and stuff, that it's all these problems just lingering in there. So.
That's a big one. When you said, are you scared to know yourself?
Ooh.
That's huge, right? And I think some of us are so afraid to get to know certain parts of ourselves that we don't realize how many of the answers we're seeking really are within, like you were saying. And that's big, because then if we're starting to get to know ourselves and seeing where those emotions come from, what the root of these things are, we're actually able to better discern people and know who to share those feelings with too.
That's the one.
Those guide the way we interact with other people as well, and then also who we can trust. I'm not saying right away, you know, oh, she's not going to betray me, she's good, blah, blah, or whichever, but at least you're able to better be like, okay, you know, they've shown me multiple times I can go to them, I can trust them, and then that's how like friendships get built, connections, things like that. But if we're not even bothering to take the time to deal with our emotions ourselves first, we're not going to be able to know, like, who can I actually share this with, and it's not going to become like the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, like in a day, don't let your feelings guide your decisions. And we talk when we were hitting on this is those impulsive behaviors that happen from those intense emotions. You know, that's why that balance has to come in, because once you just start thinking clearly with that, and solely with just your emotions and just how you feel in that moment, who knows what's gonna happen. I mean, what did LL Cool J say? Don't make decisions when you're mad. It's true, because you do things, you know. I even think about like times like I've blocked people, and Jim was like, "Hold on, you upset right now?" He's like, "Make sure, you know, things like anything that any decision that you want to do, or like whether it is like to vent to somebody because you're in that moment. Is that stop and think? Is that the right person that you want to vent to? Okay, you want to cuss someone out. Okay, why? Think this through. What is that going to get you because you popped off on them? You know, you did something crazy to them. Like really think. You know, stop and think. You know, because when our emotions control, trust me, our emotions can lead us to do anything. Like I feel like it's ego driven. There's no control with that. When we get grounded with ourselves, we're able to see the big picture.
Exactly. And even when you're happy and trying to make different decisions,
that
that can influence a lot. So just thinking about that too, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, but like you were saying though, those impulsive decisions, obviously, you know, because I know this can be argued in so many different ways of like, well, you know, half of our relationships are built on emotions and stuff like that. So don't take it so literal what we're saying, but obviously like the big decisions that you're making in your life, don't let a fleeting emotion pass that, right? I used to be a type of person also where like if one thing pissed me off about a partner or something, I would be so quick to cut them off. And I realized like that wasn't the way to live. I wasn't going to be having deep connections in that case. Now I'm more mindful about what I say, because I also have a really smart mouth. And like when I want to say something, I'll say it. But I'm being more mindful on what exactly is coming out of my mouth, because that also is a reflection of me, right? Like the things that I'm thinking, the things that I'm saying to people. So when you're taking that step back and allowing yourself to get grounded before just acting out of that anger of like, well, he insulted me, so I'm going to insult him back and blah, blah, blah. I've had so many of those moments where I'm like, dang, I really said that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that because I was angry at that moment. And then I have to go back and apologize or try and make it better, or just lose that person because it's not repairable. So this is big in really thinking about like, okay, what decisions am I making based off of just an anger moment, right? Or even a happy moment, because when you're super happy, you start to think about other stuff and you're like, oh, I'm ready to do this, I'm ready to attack the world and blah, blah, blah. And then when things don't pan out the way you expected, you wonder why.
There's that flip-flop. And honestly, all this relates to self-love, because you're finding that balance, you're allowing yourself to master your energy, master your emotions. You know, you're not allowing your emotions to get the best of you. You know, you're stopping yourself from those impulsive behaviors.
Absolutely. And I think you're finding out feelings don't make you weak, right? On top of that, like, I think a lot of us are so scared to show any type of emotion. I'm currently reading this book called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, and she talks about being vulnerable with people. And part of being vulnerable involves admitting certain feelings that we have at certain moments. And we're also afraid to talk about stuff like this. Again, at an appropriate time, place, with people, all of that. But we're so afraid to admit, dang, I messed up, or dang, I don't feel my best today, or dang, it's been a shitty ass day, to be honest. And because we're so quick to just be like putting on this facade, like no, I'm great. Cool. Yeah. When in reality, it's not. It's okay to not be okay all the time. I don't know how many times we can emphasize this, but I've really taken that quote to heart, especially this year, because so much has been going on. There's still so many changes going on in the world in general. So of course that's going to come down to my own personal life, that things are happening. And I'm learning to just take a step back and realize, you know what, I'm allowed to have these feelings, and that doesn't make me weak. Actually, on the contrary, it makes you stronger, and it makes you realize you're more resilient than these things that are actually trying to attack you.
Yes, in a day, your feelings are valid, you know, and a part of self-love is acknowledging your feelings, putting importance on your feelings, you know, giving that, like, even before we started this episode, I had a talk with Jen about things that were still bothering me about past situation, you know, and I allowed myself, like, I'm not going to shame myself for feeling, or like, I'm letting the feeling, you know, whatever it is, come and pass, but I'm not shaming myself for it. I'm speaking about it in a healthy, safe space, so that way I can move forward and heal from it, you know, and like me acknowledging like that, guess what? It's going to hurt less and less. It's going to be able, because we always say too, healing isn't linear. Things will pop back up. You'll think one day you're like, yeah, I'm fine, F this. Then like 2 weeks from now, whatever, it'll resurface and you'll feel it all over again. But it's like, it's really about just allowing yourself to feel it and open up about it, because the more you face it, because I could have just kept quiet, let it bother me on the inside, but guess what? It gets worse, and guess what? I probably would have been having tears talking about it, or just more upset, or like angry on the inside now, or don't know why I'm mad, because sometimes you don't even know what the feeling is. You could be feeling upset for no reason, and you're like, oh, it's just a bad day, but it could be just some old stuff just sitting up in there. So it's really good to really allow your feelings to be validated by yourself, because if you don't validate your feelings, how is someone else going to?
Yes. Please get to the root of why you're taking your feelings out on others, if this is what's going on, right? Because like I think that was a perfect example where if you hadn't worked on it, you probably would have taken, well, you're not that type of person, but like subconsciously you probably would have taken it out on somebody else, right? And this is why it's important for us to really get deep down with ourselves and try and heal whatever it is that we're coming from, whatever emotions we never got to deal with as a child. If this is your time now to start, because you've never known, you've never heard this type of thing, then start. It's never too late. I don't care how old you are, just start getting to know yourself too, like knowing what kinds of emotions are capable, and then knowing what kinds of emotions certain people bring out of you, certain places bring out of you, certain events, whichever. You learn a lot about what you're made of too. And I think that's the most beautiful thing on this planet. Like, this is why you're here. Your journey is to get to know you, build that relationship with yourself. A lot of that has to do with your emotions and where they're coming from.
And there's a way to say things to people without disturbing your peace and their peace. I'm gonna throw that in there, because you know, let's say someone did something to you, grimy, whatever, you need to confront. There's nothing wrong with speaking your truth, speaking your mind, telling people, but you don't have to do it in a way to where, like, you know, you feel like, you know, you lost yourself, or your anger came out and everything going off in that person. There's subtle ways and subtle ways to control, you know, just control how you let your emotions out. I'm learning how to master that, because trust me, I've been tried, you know, I feel like my patience has been tested a lot, but you know, like the more and more I'm mastering how to control my impulses, you know, my pop backs and stuff like that, it's easier for me to like keep my peace, but still let a person know about themselves, you know, or take accountability about whatever I need to go through, you know.
Yeah. Respect yourself enough to not lose your shit every time something goes wrong. Yeah. Also, like that has a lot to do. Right. That has a lot to do with what you were previously saying, because when you start just letting everything affect you and all these people around you, you're going to be miserable the rest of your life, because you're going to be dealing with people probably forever, whether it is your family, whichever, all of that stuff, you're going to be dealing with people. So if you're just taking in everything, try not to have such thin skin, right? This is something I had to learn too, to just not let somebody else's actions reflect who I am on the inside. We don't control anybody else's reactions to us, to their own situations, and even if they take it out on us, it has more to do with them than it does with us. And that was the biggest lesson that I could have learned also in my people-pleasing experience that I've had on this planet, of just learning that not everything is about me either. Like whatever thing this person dealt with before dealing with me at that moment, that's on them, right? They're choosing to let that affect them, and then how they interact with me, that paints a certain picture in my head of like, oh, well, I'm gonna stay away from this person. But at the end of the day, that doesn't change my character. It doesn't change anything that I've been through.
And sometimes people just want you to swoop to their level because of the way they're feeling, and it's like, you got to be the stronger person to go, okay, I'm not going down there with you. I'm gonna stay up here. You can meet me up here, but I ain't going down there, you know. And it takes a lot of inner strength, emotional strength to do that, but once you start working on it, it becomes easier and easier to weigh out the BS. And I want to say too, bad days are going to happen, but are you going to let that affect you every time?
That's exhausting.
Every day isn't, I mean, let's be real, it's always, I mean, every day, like Agenda said, it's people around us. Sometimes a day, sometimes you just might have that luck that day, but every time, are you just going to, and then like, what does that do to you? Every time you beat yourself up about it, cussing everybody out, going crazy, you're getting, or you do something that gets you in trouble, like with the law or something over it because of whatever, you know, every single time, you know. So it's like, I think that's something to take in account too, that, you know, how to just get through when things are happening, how to have that positive self-talk when things are going down.
I like that. Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if y'all have read the 4 agreements, but this is the 4th agreement.
That one.
Don't take anything personally.
That's my favorite agreement right there.
Same.
That was the one.
I know it's easier said than done, and it's something we have to work on. It's something I still got to work on every now and then, especially if it's like people closer to me and they act a certain way. I take it all in, right, thinking it is about me. But when we learn to step outside of ourselves, outside of that relationship we even have with that person, even outside of just being around that person, that's when we realize too that it's not about us. Again, I don't know how I can keep emphasizing this. Like, whatever's going on in that person's life, in their head, even their own emotions, that doesn't have everything to do with us. So we need to stop taking things so personally and just realize whatever it is that they're going on with their head and things like that, we can just be there for them, but it doesn't mean that it is about us, and we shouldn't let that affect our day or our mood.
In a day, people treat us the way they treat themselves. You know, I remember a coworker had me read that book, and honestly, it changed my life when I started looking at things that way. I'm like, okay, you know, because think about when you are in that in that validation stage, you're like, oh, did I do something wrong? You're trying to fix yourself and cater to them, and sometimes when people are in that space, they want people just to feel like that because it makes them feel better, like, yeah, you know. But it's like, no, once you start meeting them where they at, like, okay, you know, I feel like people start to catch on to their own BS after a while. Like, okay, I can't get away with that anymore. This person ain't tolerating it because it's that whole punching bag mentality.
Yeah.
Like, how long can I be this person's punching bag, you know? And everything too, not everything has to be addressed. So pick your battles, you know. So yeah, some things do, it is what it is, but ask yourself, is it worth it at the end of the day?
I think that's the biggest question we can ask ourselves.
Is the time right? Shoot.
That part. Is the time right? Is the battle worth it? Is this even worth you wasting your words, your energy on? Like, I think we just really need to start choosing wisely. Like, how big is this thing really going to be? Is it going to matter tomorrow? Like you were saying earlier, is it going to matter next week, in a year even, right? And if it's like a bigger issue within your own personal relationships with people, sure. But if it's something so minor that you can get over it, why do it? Why bring more intense emotions into your relationship?
Lord. And it's harder to get rid of them. I'm gonna say that.
That's right.
Once they come out, woo.
That's true.
But we appreciate y'all for tapping into our 60th episode. You can check us out on Instagram at SpeakUpJV. We're also on Twitter at SpeakUpJV. Please tweet us. Thank you for all the retweets, by the way. Check us out on our other platforms on YouTube. I mean, we're on YouTube right here, but YouTube, Spotify. What are we on? Podbean, Pandora, Apple, iHeartMusic, everything. Yeah. Shoot, just tap in, tell the world. Thank you, everybody who's been passing the word about us.
Exactly. We are global, y'all. Yes. So we appreciate the support, like you just said. And just a reminder, also, we are live and unfiltered every Thursday at 7 p.m. only on the Good News Radio. Download the app by going to the link in our bio, and you can chat with us. You can call in. Please interact with us. We love to hear from y'all. So reminder, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all soon. Take care.